With Fontaine's release in 4.0, players got to meet the mysterious Navia, an exciting new addition to a Geo character roster. After working at her side to resolve a courtly crisis in 4.1, Navia has swept us off our feet with her detective work, macarons, and Mary Poppins style umbrella.
Count me in!
Navia is a 5-star Geo Claymore character in Genshin Impact who brings strong skill damage, Geo conversion on her normal attacks, and a burst that provides off-field Geo application. This accomplished young lady is a mob boss that can go toe-to-toe with other bosses and come out on top. This video guide will inform you about Navia's best builds, kit, gearing, teams, and playstyle to help you understand the value she can add to your account and gaming experience. As always, if you enjoy Navia for her character, design, or other features, these videos are by no means meant to stop you from spending Primogems on her. Instead, they should prepare you for what you can look forward to or work around to meet your gameplay expectations. With her A1 passive, Navia gains Geo conversion and a small buff on her normal attacks, allowing her to trigger Crystallize and obtain Crystal Shrapnel charges. Outside of Geo conversion, Navia's normal attacks deal mediocre damage. Navia's elemental skill is her main source of damage. It possesses a stacking mechanic called Crystal Shrapnel. These stacks are called Crystal Shrapnel charges, and Navia can hold up to 6 Crystal Shrapnel charges at a time. Charges are obtained when any teammate picks up crystallized shards, as well as periodically when Navia's burst hits an enemy. Her tap skill consumes all Crystal Shrapnel charges to fire a short-range shot or Rosula shard shots, dealing Geo damage which pierces through enemies. Her hold skill first absorbs nearby crystallized shards, and then consumes all Crystal Shrapnel charges to fire the Rosula shard shots. Navia's hold skill absorbs crystallized shards fairly quickly and within a good range. As such, if Navia does not have max Crystal Shrapnel charges and there are crystallized shards nearby, it is beneficial to use a brief hold skill. If fully stacked, a tap skill will work just as well. Both the tap and hold variations of her skill generate 3 to 4 energy particles. The damage from Navia's skill is based on how many Rosula shard shots hit the enemy. Each additional shard shot that hits it is a multiplicative increase to the base multiplier listed on the talent description, 671.2% at talent level 9, see the table on screen. At 0 Crystal Shrapnel charges, Navia fires 5 Rosula shard shots. At 1 charge, she fires 7, at 2 she fires 9, and finally at 3 Crystal Shrapnel charges, she fires a maximum total of 11 Rosula shard shots. If all 11 shard shots land, her elemental skill does 200% or double the base damage. For the further 4, 5 or 6 charges, she will gain an additional 15, 30 or 45% Geo damage bonus for the used skill. Navia's skill has a cooldown of 9 seconds and 2 charges in total. However, only 1 skill charge recovers cooldown at a time. Her skill also summons a Surging Blade that deals Usia aligned Geo damage with a 7-second cooldown.
A proper send-off from the Spina with love.
Navia's elemental burst deals an initial hit of AoE Geo damage, after which it will provide Fire support, which deals AoE Geo damage periodically for 12 seconds. Fire support will not be removed when Navia swaps off field, but it is a dynamic ability, which means it will lose any buffs that rely on Navia being on field to receive them, like Bennett's burst. It will also lose any buffs that expire before fire support's duration ends. Her burst also grants Navia 1 Crystal Shrapnel charge when it hits enemies with a 2.4 second cooldown. As fire support hits once every 0.7 seconds for a total of 17 hits over its duration, this usually allows a stacking of around 5 Crystal Shrapnel charges. Navia's elemental burst has a 15-second cooldown and 60 energy cost, giving it decent uptime provided her energy requirements are met. These will be discussed later in this video. Overall, while her burst damage is acceptable, Navia's burst is more important for the Crystal Shrapnel charges it provides to support her skill, either directly or through applying Geo to trigger Crystallize. Her A1 passive converts Navia's normal, charge, and plunging attacks to Geo damage for 4 seconds after she uses her elemental skill, and additionally grants a 40% damage bonus to these attacks. This means Navia can trigger Crystallize with her attack combos on field, gaining charges for her skill. Because this conversion only lasts for a short duration, she does not demand as much field time as other on-field DPS units. For each Pyro, Electro, Cryo, or Hydro party member, Navia gains 20% increased attack. This effect can stack up to 2 times. Navia naturally wants teams with Pyro, Electro, Cryo, or Hydro characters for Crystallize, so this is a small but welcome damage buff. Note that the 2 elements do not need to be unique. For example, 2 Hydro characters is still 2 stacks. Leveling Navia's elemental skill should be prioritized, as it makes up the majority of her damage. Her normal attack and elemental burst contribute less, but remain relevant to her damage and should still be leveled. Navia is already a solid and fully functional character at C0. That said, most of Navia's constellations are sizable increases to her damage and quality of life. Navia's C1 restores free energy and decreases her burst cooldown by 1 second for every charge consumed by using her skill. this can provide up to 9 energy and reduce her burst cooldown by up to 3 seconds. As Navia nearly always uses 2 skills per rotation, each with approximately 6 crystal shrapnel charges, this constellation effectively reduces her burst cost from 60 to 42 and drastically lowers her ER requirements. Unfortunately, the cooldown reduction is not particularly useful, as Navia's rotations tend not to make use of her burst more than once, and attempting to use it more frequently drastically increases her ER needs. Navia C2 has 2 components. Firstly, increases a crit rate of her skill by 12% for every charge of crystal shrapnel consumed, up to 3 times. This effectively provides Navia's skill with a 36% crit rate boost. Secondly, when her skill hits an opponent, this will call 1 cannon fire support shot, which will strike near the location of a hit. Because it counts as a burst hit, this can both directly provide a crystal shrapnel charge and potentially trigger crystallize. This constellation increases the level of Navia's skill by 3, which is a decent damage increase, as the skill is her main source of damage. That's umbrella warfare, I guess. Navia C4 is a good increase to her damage output, decreasing enemy geo resist by 20% for 8 seconds after Navia's burst hits. As her burst lasts for 12 seconds, this effectively provides 20 seconds of geo resistance shred, which benefits both Navia and her geo teammates. When combined with geo resonance, this combination is comparable to Viridescent Venera's resistance shred effect. This constellation increases Navia's burst talent level by 3. Unfortunately, as her burst is not the main source of damage of her kit, this is only a minor damage increase. Navia C6s were very powerful icing on the macaron of her constellations, providing significant benefits to her skill. This constellation refunds any crystal shrapnel charges consumed past 3, and for each charge consumed above the first 3, Navia's skill gains 35% crit damage. When Navia fires her skill with 6 crystal shrapnel charges at C6, just like C0, her skill will fire 11 Razula shard shots, dealing 200% of her base damage with a 45% geo damage bonus. However, with her C6, this skill use will additionally gain a total of 135% crit damage and only consume a total of 3 crystal shrapnel charges when fired. Overall, C6 is roughly a 40% increase to her skill's damage. The refund mechanic makes it easier for Navia to gain and maintain max charges on her skill, smoothing her rotations. Due to Navia's place as an attack scaling DPS, her weapons tend to follow traditional DPS templates. However, as she does want to use her bursts once every rotation, weapons with some ER percentage or passive effects may also be beneficial. Navia's signature weapon, Verdict, provides her with a strong amount of attack percentage and skill damage percentage. However, while these stats are decent, it does not significantly outperform other 5-star weapons or Serpent Spine. An excellent choice for Navia, providing an abundance of damage percentage, which her kit and teams tend to lack. With a welcome crit rate secondary stat, this weapon competes with other 5-star options at low refinements and may even be comparable to Verdict at R5. Another weapon with a crit rate secondary stat combined with its attack percentage passive, Beacon is an excellent choice for Navia despite more than half of her passive being useless. While Navia's kit revolving around shields makes it nigh impossible to gain 2 stacks on the passive, this weapon performs very well even with this in mind. With a hefty 88% crit damage secondary stat, Redhorn is a strong choice for Navia. While the weapon's passive is less useful for Navia due to her attack scaling, it can still help her damage a little bit, and at worst can provide some very mild consolation for any defense rolls on her artifacts. These weapons both provide a generous amount of attack percentage, especially paired with Navia's high base attack. Navia's synergy with Crystallize provides high uptime on the Unforged attack percent buff. However, Navia's first skill use does not usually have max stacks, whilst Gravestone provides a consistent attack percent buff for Navia with an additional team-wide buff when enemies are at low health. Skyward Pride offers a high base attack and some ER percentage to help meet Navia's ER requirements. It also provides a small damage percent buff through its passive. The event weapon, the Ultimate Overlord's Mega Magic Sword, has an ER percentage secondary stat, which should cover most if not all of Navia's ER requirements. Depending on the Melusine quest progress, this weapon provides 12 to 24% attack at R1. This weapon's passive requires Navia to be healed, which may be difficult since Navia often runs with a shielder such as Zhongli. However, if she's able to consistently gain the passive's attack percentage, such as in Furina teams, this weapon is her best craftable option. While it's not recommended to craft this solely for Navia, this weapon is a simple and decent craftable option if available. This weapon provides skill damage percentage, which is a helpful boost to her damage, and the ER percentage secondary stat can be helpful in teams where Navia has high energy requirements. The 4-piece Nighttime Whispers in the Echoing Wood is Navia's best in slot artifact set, providing attack percentage and geo damage bonus. Against stronger enemies, the second part of the 4-piece effect may be lost if your crystallized shield breaks. However, even with a reduced uptime, this set is still Navia's best, and the uptime issue can be mitigated by choosing a team with faster elemental application. The 4-piece Marechaussee Hunter set is a strong option if Navia can reliably take advantage of a 4-piece effect, which is currently only possible with Furina. It should also be noted that Navia usually has either no stacks or only 1 stack on her first skill use. While 4-piece Golden Troupe provides a strong buff to Navia's elemental skill, her burst and normal attacks still make up a sizable portion of her total damage. Unfortunately, this means that 4-piece Golden Troupe is only slightly better than her 2-piece options. If using this set, it's recommended to swap out before Navia's second skill use to gain the extra 20% skill damage bonus. A combination of various 2-piece sets is a viable and unconditional option for Navia, especially if you do not want to farm the 4-piece Whisper's Domain. Simply pick whichever artifacts have better substats. Navia's burst helps to strengthen her main source of damage, her elemental skill, by providing crystal shrapnel charges and triggering crystallize. As such, it is important to build enough ER percentage on Navia to allow her to burst every rotation. Her energy requirements can vary significantly depending on her team composition and Favonia's weapon procs. Her C1 also reduces her energy requirements. Players interested in fine-tuning their team's ER requirements are welcome to use their energy recharge calculator in the description below. As an attack scaling DPS, Navia should use an attack sans. However, you could opt for an ER sans instead if you cannot reach Navia's ER requirements otherwise. Her goblet should be geo damage percentage and a circlet should be crit rate or crit damage, whichever results in a ratio closest to 1 to 2 crit rate to crit damage. For her substats, you should aim for ER percentage until she meets her ER requirements as discussed in the previous section. Following this, crit and attack percent substats are also beneficial. Navia's primary playstyle is that of an on-field Geo DPS, whose main source of damage is her elemental skill. The damage dealt by her skill is increased via crystal shrapnel charges, which are gained through the crystallized reaction and her elemental burst. Although Navia's damage is focused on her skill, the rest of her kit is also important as her burst provides off-field Geo damage and her A1 passive provides Geo conversion to her normal attacks. In practice, this means that Navia should open with her burst, swap off so her teammates can use her abilities, and then swap back on field to use her skill and normal attack combos. Navia as a Quickswap DPS has little field time, only swapping to cast her burst and later her skill. In teams that have a non-Geo DPS, Navia's crystal shrapnel charges are dependent on her burst. This drives her ER requirements quite high, and she gains fewer charges compared to her on-field playstyle, reducing her damage output. While Quickswap teams with Noelle or Ningguang are viable, they do not make the best use of Navia's kit and will not be covered further in this guide. Due to Navia's A4 and skill taking advantage of a crystallized reaction, she's incentivized to run with 2 Pyro, Electro, Cryo, and or Hydro teammates. A Geo unit is highly appreciated to reduce Navia's ER requirements by providing additional Geo energy particles. They also enable Geo resonance, providing buffs and debuffs which Navia can make good use of, with high uptime due to crystallized shields. However, it should be noted that these crystallized shields are not generally capable of sustaining your team alone, so one of her teammates should provide additional survivability through shields or healing. Although Navia is an on-field DPS, she does not require an extended period of field time. Because she prefers shorter rotations of around 16.5 seconds, many buffs and teammates with 20-second cooldowns, such as Threading Tales over Dragon Slayers and Sing Chill, can feel awkward to use. Here is a general rotation guideline for Navia's teams. First, use any Geo unit skill, then Navia's burst. If possible, the particles from the Geo teammate skill should be funneled into Navia. Next, cycle through other teammates' abilities, and finally switch to Navia to cast her skill. If Navia does not have max crystal shrapnel charges and there are nearby crystallized shards, use a brief hold skill, otherwise using a tap skill is perfectly fine. To take advantage of her short 4-second Geo conversion following her skill, she should use her combo 3 normal attacks, dash, followed by 2 more normal attacks. This can be done twice in a row, once after each time her skill is cast. Depending on the rotation, Navia may want to swap out between her skill uses, for example, to allow Geo Traveler to funnel more particles to Navia. Also note that the last dash followed by 2 normal attacks after Navia's second skill can be omitted for a tighter rotation if preferred. Zhongli provides a strong shield for survivability and universal resistance shred. He can also generate particles with Favonia's lance and his pillar. However, if his pillar misses or breaks, this can have a significant negative impact on Navia's ER needs. Geo Traveler is very good at generating particles and provides a crit rate buff inside their burst range at C1, but it should be noted that proper placement of our constructs requires practice to pull off. Albedo is easy to use and also has good particle generation, although, like Zhongli, players should be careful that Albedo's flower construct does not break or miss. While attack buffs on Navia will not benefit Albedo due to his defense scaling, his personal damage remains as a respectable contribution. When played as a support, Ningguang sacrifices her own personal damage to hold Threading Tales over Dragon Slayers and provide a small Geo damage percentage buff with her A4. Although Ningguang C2 gives her a second charge on her skill, her 6-second particle cooldown prevents her from being a better Geo battery than the other options. Bennett condenses healing and buffing into one slot. His attack buff is a massive benefit to Navia and potentially her teammates too. The other flex unit should be one with consistent off-field elemental application to enable crystallize and offer more damage, as Bennett does not provide much of his own. Due to Furina's HP mechanics, a strong healer is necessary to take full advantage of Furina's buffs. For more information, please see our Furina quick guides linked in the description. Furina's skill also has an awkward 20-second cooldown and 30-second duration, forcing you to either extend your rotation to 20 seconds or cast Furina's skill every other rotation, with some downtime. That being said, if you can work around these caveats, Furina provides a very useful damage percent buff, as well as some off-field hydro application for some crystallize, as well as her own skill's damage. In general, Navia appreciates any character who can provide good off-field elemental damage and application. Some characters who fulfill this role include Fischl, Xiangling, Yelan, Xingqiu, Rosaria, and Ye Miko. Fischl in particular is a notably strong pick, as her cooldowns synergize very well with Navia's. Navia is a capable and unique Geo DPS who makes use of a crystallize reaction and delivers strong front-loaded skill damage. She can be used as a traditional DPS and is not restricted to mono Geo compositions, making her team building easy and versatile. On the other hand, she ironically suffers facing mobs due to her lack of AoE, has high energy requirements, and some of her best teammates involve learning how to place Geo constructs and managing short rotations to get the best out of her kit. Overall, she's a balanced character who is a welcome addition to the Geo roster. If players enjoy her character, playstyle, or simply want a solid Geo DPS on their side, she comfortably meets this need with her elegant yet lethal Gumbrella. Thank you for watching the KQM guide for Navia. If you think we've missed anything or have any questions, feel free to ask them in the comments below, where we will do our best to answer. Also, be sure to check out our Navia quick guide linked in the description if you're looking for an easy to reference written resource for the details in this video.